Hey folks, welcome back to another OWTV interview. My name is Apostle, and joining me today, we have one of the most successful coaches to ever come out of the North American region. It's Wheats from Geekay Esports. Wheats, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How about you?
I'm doing well, thanks. So if you don't mind, for anyone who's maybe not familiar with North America, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you've gotten here?
So I started coaching at like the end of 2018 with Second Wind, and so we were a contenders team in North America, and I was on Second Wind for like 2 years, pretty much until around like spring 2020, and then we got pulled up to Vancouver Titans. So I coached in Vancouver from March to the end of that season 3 of Overwatch League. And then coming out of that, I didn't get re-signed, so I joined with all my ex-Second Wing guys on American Tornado, and then went on a pretty strong run on American Tornado, and then I took a bunch of the American Tornado guys with me to go to Redbird Esports and kind of start that up. And I was on Redbird Esports for about a year and a half with a few different rosters because a lot of guys kept getting poached to Overwatch League, and then from there I got to reunite with my guys in Toronto. I was on Toronto for about half the season, and then I floated around a bit towards the end of 2023. That's when I formed with all my guys again back on Winthrop, and man, this story gets longer every time. I realize how long it is now because I haven't done this in a while. And so from Winthrop, I joined. I was on M80 for one entire day, and then from there I was on Students of the Game, and we became NRG Shock, and then I think we did pretty well in NRG Shock, and then coming into this year, we found ourselves. And I say we because it's like I'm always with Ultraviolet, but we couldn't find a team, so we ended up with a bunch of the ISU guys building that roster and into Nightmare, and then eventually becoming Geekay, and that's where I am now.
Gotcha. So, like you just said, you've basically had a hand in every stage of Overwatch Esports, from Contenders, Overwatch League, now OWCS seasons 1 and 2 here, and so far this year you have had an amazing year. You've topped the region both times, and so far in stage 3 you guys have had a perfect start here. So can you tell me a bit about what the preparation was like coming into stage 3? Did you guys have like a long break after EWC, or were you grinding that whole time?
Yeah, after EWC we didn't really get the result we were looking for. I think we had like a decently strong showing, but we were still not where we wanted to be results wise. So but coming into it into stage 3, it's like, okay, we've kind of gotten a lot of the basics down. So I don't think the preparation is as intense as it was in the first 2 stages. It's kind of more like, this is the regular season. Like, let's get it done. So after EWC, we took off from the end of EWC till about 2 weeks before stage 3 started. Because all of us had to move back to school, and because we're all university students, so we were all pretty busy with like the end of summer stuff, like all the kind of stuff you have to do. After EWC, all of our guys went on like world trips. Like Lethal was in Dubai, Admiral was in Italy, Will and Kuffa went to Australia. So we were all around the world for a while. So there's no way we could have scrimmed during those 2 weeks.
And for you yourself, did you travel anywhere, or were you kind of just waiting to see what the patch notes would look like?
Yeah, I was pretty excited to get home after 2 weeks in South Korea and then a week in Saudi. I was just like, I want to go home and be with my family and my dog. Like I've been on the road long enough. A lot of the people from EWC went on trips right after, but I just wanted.
You needed the time to rest.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So like you've mentioned, you've been with this same core for quite a while, but Ultraviolet in particular, you've worked with through most of your career, I think, at this point. So has like the way you've coached the team, like the GK squad in particular, but also just kind of your coaching style overall, can you tell us a bit about how that's changed over time and how you've kind of grown as a coach?
Yeah, I think at the start, I was trying to be more of like a X's and O's like type coach, like a real strategic guy, but I don't think that's really my strength. I mean, obviously I know basic stuff, or basics at like the level I'm at, but I wouldn't say that's my strength. Nowadays, I would definitely say I'm more of like the coach who's doing a lot of stuff out of game, like talking to players, a lot of dealing with like any situations that pop up. You know, on Geekay, I'm the manager and the coach now, so I have to deal with like a lot of org stuff and a lot of actually a lot of content stuff, which is kind of crazy now. And
that's how they got you into this interview.
Yeah, and so I would say over time my role has just grown and grown to like doing more and more stuff, like where it's like I'm not just coaching anymore. Like I'm the one negotiating with all the orgs after we lost Nightmare. Like I'm the one booking scrims. I'm the one like talking to the org about content and like setting up boot camps and stuff. So I think at this point, like I'm really glad that I have GgulTaek with me, because he can do like a lot of the in-game, like he can heavy carry the in-game coaching, and I can chip in where I can, but it doesn't really have to be my primary focus on this team.
Gotcha. So you mentioned that you work alongside GgulTaek, and if you can tell me a little bit more about that. Obviously, you're a homegrown coach, right? You've been in North America for a long time, but one thing we've heard a lot is that Korean coaches, they have a very different style of coaching. Like we see with like Smash on Virtus Pro, they always talk about how he brings that Korean style of coaching. So is that something that you've experienced with GgulTaek at all?
Yeah, I think when he came here, his like whole thing was like, you know, like we can easily win North America, and like we can compete with the top if we start like playing our Korean style Overwatch. So when he first came, we had to like relearn like a lot of it, and even me, like I had to learn a lot of different ways to think about the game, because I think in North America is kind of like an echo chamber of like all the coaches like how they think, and then like the players how they think, and like so bringing in someone from the outside to just be like, no, let's do like everything completely different. Like, I think that's led to a lot of our successes, Geekay and Nightmare too. Especially, I think it was a lot more surprising when we were Nightmare, because it was like a big style change compared to a lot of the other teams. But then I think more and more teams have started to play more like Korean style in NA as the year has gone on, because I think people have realized that's like the correct way to play Overwatch. So I think it just took like one team like us to
kind of
bring it to NA. Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, you were just talking about Nightmare, so that's a perfect transition. So we can actually talk about your match that we saw this weekend against Nightmare. Now, obviously, this was a little bit interesting to start, as we did see a lot of tech issues there in the first map, some internet issues and stuff. So did this kind of throw you off at all, kind of dealing with these pauses mid-map, or do you and the team kind of just roll through it? And
yeah, I don't think it really threw us off at all. The only weird thing is that when you're paused, like for a tech pause, you're not allowed to talk about the game. So it's kind of weird, like locking in for the game and then like, oh, you pause for 20 minutes and you can't talk about the game at all. So we're just talking about random stuff. Well, I'm not, like, because coaches aren't allowed to talk. So all the players are just talking about random stuff.
So basically, you get a podcast while it's paused.
Yeah, go play again, like right now. Like everyone was able to lock. Like as soon as the time, like there's a 5-second countdown for unpausing the game, and as soon as that timer starts, everyone's locked right back in. So I think it's because we have a team full of like veteran players. Like even if they're not veterans of like tier 1 pro scene, like this kind of stuff happens all the time, and like especially in lower tier matches, there's always technical difficulties and stuff. So, but yeah, yeah, we had issues too. It was like Lethal kept DCing, or his game kept freezing or something. So Lethal was DCing, Painkiller's DCing. So yeah, it was a bit of a weird one, but
yeah. Well, talking about it a bit more in depth, if we can, going into that first map of Samoa, we saw some interesting stuff. We saw you guys playing a lot of the Winston into the Zarya, and it kind of seems that for the first little bit of each point, Nightmare almost had a bit of an advantage. They seem to be finding a lot of success with that Zarya comp there, but you guys did end up turning it around in the end, almost getting like reverse sweeps for each individual point. So can you tell us a bit about how that matchup went and what you were kind of thinking, kind of seeing Nightmare come out looking so strong initially?
Yeah, I think that's our biggest strength is like a lot of times going into matches, you don't know exactly what the other team's going to do, and you kind of have to make adjustments on the fly. But it often doesn't take it going to like between maps, and it's not like me and GgulTaek have to be like, oh, we need to change this. At least in the regular season games or in NA, like usually they'll figure it out during the series, like or during the map, like oh, like they're doing this, like our UV is like an in-game coach pretty much. So like he'll make adjustments on the fly, and then often are not like our first fight like on a volcano map on Samoa, like we just got picked and we trolled, and then they have a bunch of energy and it's hard to retake, right? So it's like I don't think it's like it needs to be read into that deeply that it was like reversed. It was kind of like we trolled our first fight or two and then we played right the rest of the fights. Like,
well, was any of that like a result of running the Winston? Because obviously we saw the ball ban come through. Were you guys planning on running the Winston regardless, or was that just an adjustment?
I think we were pretty sure they would. When we saw Painkiller was in, we were like, okay, they'll probably ban ball. Like, but it was kind of either or. Like, if you ban one or the other, we'll just play the other one. It's not really. I think all of our comps, the heroes don't really matter. Like we can.
It's more so the style.
Yeah, our like style isn't hero dependent because we believe that the role is the same no matter what hero you're on. So
okay. So, you know, kind of expanding off this more about the roles and stuff. One thing that we see you guys run, I think, a lot more than other teams in the West is the Luyang Lucio. So can you tell us a bit about what exactly it is that maybe it's not those heroes in particular, but just that style that they bring to the table?
Yeah. Okay. Well, this is kind of contradictory to what I just said, but for those two, it is like we think Admiral's the best Lucio, and we think UV is like way better than everyone at Luyang, right? And we think Luyang is really super broken. So, like we're just like, okay, put them on their best heroes, and we'll figure out the rest of the comp around it. Like it's like we think that's like our strongest point of our team, so it makes sense to like play for it, you know?
Yeah. So I think a couple of the other Geekay players have mentioned that like you guys do like to kind of lean into the player strengths with your backline. But from a coaching perspective, can you tell us a bit about how it is kind of gauging whether you want to like lean into a player's strength versus leaning into like meta strength?
I think a lot of the times we'll try meta stuff in scrims, and if it works out, we're like, okay. But usually when meta stuff works out, it's because the meta is stuff that we're good at. Like when it was like Soj Tracer or like strong hit scan meta, like stage 1, where it's like lethal can just play Ashe everywhere, like or like stuff like that. When that's the meta, it's like, okay, we don't really have to change anything. But when like coming into this meta, everyone thought double flex was meta, and that's definitely not one of our strengths, right? Like we don't have a Genji Tracer like DPS lineup, but so we were like, okay, we have to figure something out, right? Like we're not going to win mirroring heroes we're not good at, no matter how good our strategy is. So
kind of moving on throughout the game here on New Queen Street, we saw a pretty interesting comp. We saw the Lifeweaver comps, right? And at this point, I think Admiral is, you know, probably known as the Lifeweaver guy, given that he's one of the few players that does like to pull it out. Is this something that he came up with, or like the team came up with, and you just as a coach allow it, or is it something that you kind of embrace?
Yeah, I think also this should be clarified for like everyone. Like I feel like a lot of the times viewers or people like coach streamers will be watching the game and be like, how could the coach let them play that? Or like, oh, the coach cooked when he came up with this comp. Like a lot of the times the players like, I just want to try this, and they're like, okay, go for it. Like, you know, like we were like, okay, they're probably gonna ban Lucio at some point, right? Like well, if Lucio's like, that used to be our strategy, is to ban Lucio so we could play Lifeweaver. So if the other team wants to ban us off Lucio, it's like, okay, we still have this from before, you know? So most of the times on our team, it's like the player being like, "This is a good matchup for my character," and we're like, "Okay." So that's why you get like Lethal Ensemble or something. He's like, "I like it," into all their characters. You know, it's not like we sit around all day like coming up with every single matchup where every hero should be played. We kind of trust the players that they should know what character to play.
So obviously you're talking about like having trust in your players and stuff, but as a just as like a personal perspective, what are your thoughts on Lifeweaver? Because it is something that does seem to be unique to you guys, right? Is there a reason why you guys can make it work when other teams can't?
I think other teams will just like lose a fight and like just blame the Lifeweaver and then switch most of, like, at least that's what I'm guessing. Like in our scrims, like we could lose like 18 fights in a row with him on Lifeweaver and no one will say anything to him. Like we're like, okay, like we did something else wrong, right? Like the heroes shouldn't affect like the outcome that much. And also I think our team is like actually really conscious of like having a Lifeweaver and like playing to his strengths, like trying to go make plays, knowing they'll get gripped, or like knowing we have like a pretty much a pocket healer and taking more aggressive positions. So I think our team's just really adapted to it because we've played with it so much.
Moving on to Junkertown, and kind of going over from New Queen Street and Samoa as well. We did see you guys continue to play Symmetra comps, and we've actually seen you guys kind of leaning a lot into the sim. Well, I should say in this past game especially. Is there any particular reason for that, given that the early days of the stage saw you guys playing maybe more experimental stuff?
Yeah, I think the sim's just safe into a lot of stuff, and then there's a lot of comps where Tracer's like really hard to play, so sim can still do like a lot of damage and like move around a lot and like create a lot of like weird opportunities. And she has a really strong ult, so I think it's like just an alternative we're trying. I think that's what the regular season is really for, is for us to like try and experiment and figure out what kind of stuff we should have in our back pocket for like the actually meaningful games of the playoffs. Got
you. So are you like kind of going back to what I mentioned earlier? So far you guys have had a very solid start, right? You're 3-0, but it should be mentioned that you guys have been kind of going up in difficulty when it comes to playing the teams, right? Started off against Team Z and then kind of working your way up from there. Are you kind of like taking those chances to experiment a little more than you would otherwise, or are you guys at the point where you kind of view all these teams as kind of being equal?
No, they're definitely not. I think there's like a pretty strong break at like the middle of NA, like the top 4 versus the bottom 4, where we definitely have to put more time into prepping for the top 4 teams and the bottom 4. But I just think like we will experiment versus like any team really, but we'll definitely experiment more versus the bottom 4 teams. Like we'll try more stuff out where it's like when you go against the top 4 teams, this is kind of our like chance where like we get to see them at full strength, because we scrim them all the time, but you know it's not, scrims are completely different from a match. So we finally get to see them in like full try hard form for the first time, see how they react to bans, see how they react to like, see what kind of maps they actually like and stuff, and then just keep all that in mind for the playoffs.
Yeah. Gotcha. Now, kind of going off experimentation, one thing that we've seen always invite experimentation is like when a new patch just drops, right? And we did recently just have the mid-season patch. And I know from seeing on your Twitter that you may not have been the biggest fan of some of the changes that the devs put out. So can you tell us a bit about your thoughts on the patch and whether you think it's actually changing anything significantly here?
Well, I think that's what the problem is that it didn't really change anything. And I feel like the thing I most get upset about is when they nerf stuff or buff stuff in a way where it feels like they don't understand why their character is strong or why it's weak. So like the Luyang like nerfs being all related to his healing and his cooldowns and stuff when he does Hanzo body shot damage like on a missile he can control is like what I was kind of upset about. I'm less mad than I was when I made the tweet now. In the moment, I was pretty upset, but right now I'm just like, whatever. You know, we'll just keep playing what we're playing. It's not. I just wish there was more impact with the patches is all. It just seems like every patch is like either it's super impactful or it's like does nothing, and like we have no idea what's going to happen every time there's a patch coming. So that's what's like annoying as like a team, because we're like looking forward to the patch because we're like, oh, double flex is strong. Maybe this patch can help us like make hit scan stronger again. Oh, nothing happened. You know, like, so it's kind of the main thing I was upset about.
Right. So when it comes to like a mid-season patch that in this case isn't just mid-season, but like mid-stage for OWCS, do you prefer those patches that like just totally shake things up? Or when you are mid-stage like this, is it better to kind of be able to rely on what you've been practicing up until this point?
Yeah, I feel like if there's any time to make like a big change, it is in the middle of the regular season, because like the regular season doesn't really matter that much, right? Like, especially in NA, like the top 4 is going to make the playoffs. The bottom 4 is going to end up in the lower bracket and relegation in some order. So, like if there's any time for stuff to get shaken up, it's like maybe the middle of the season could make the regular season more interesting if there's more like extreme patches. But it also feels like they always put the crazy patches out after the season, like going into playoffs. And that is like, that's how you end up with like the situation last playoffs where we were like playing like Magra, Moira versus Liquid in the winter finals. Everyone's like, what are they doing? And we're like, well, the patch like looked good. Like, you know, so that's how stuff like that ends up happening.
Gotcha. Now, you've mentioned a few times here that you do think that there is like a bit of a tier break between top 4 and bottom 4, right? So if we can look on to the future match, you'll be playing against Extinction, who is currently right now on the bottom 4, but they've shown some signs of kind of being able to punch up. So is there anything that you're kind of looking for in that match, or do you think it's going to be more of like the same results we've been seeing from you guys?
Yeah, in terms of us, like I think we're gonna 3-0 every match. Like I never think we're gonna go in and lose, like no matter who we play. So I know like series will end up being longer, right? Like, but I never predict that we're gonna lose a map, right? Like you just prepare for if you lose, but in the moment, I'm never like, oh, we'll have a hard time. Like we're just gonna 3-0 everyone, right? So, yeah, this weekend I think it's just gonna be more of the same. I'm not really like. I don't think the only like players on their team that I think are like standout players are their DPS, and even then, I feel like their DPS are just like downgraded versions of our DPS. So
okay,
I'm not too worried about that.
Yeah, I mean, like you kind of just said, they do have a similar kind of DPS lineup in that they have flex DPS and they have hit scan, right? So, are you guys planning to kind of like take that just the straight 1v1s when it comes to that, or are you gonna try and be a little trickier, or should I say, do you expect them to kind of try anything if you know that they won't be able to win the mirror?
Yeah, the problem is like I don't know what there is to try. I don't think there's really any super viable like cheese comps right now. I think we're at a point where everyone kind of just plays what they're good at right now, and all the viable tanks obviously, and I don't really see any like comp they could come up with that would give us trouble.
Gotcha. So we can expect a quick 3-0 then.
Hopefully.
All right. Well, like you mentioned, you kind of go into matches expecting to 3-0 every team, right? And now we're still a bit of a ways away from it, but obviously you guys will be playing against Spacestation and Team Liquid as well, who are kind of, they're right there in the top 3 alongside you guys. And we're still kind of trying to figure out how that top 3 breaks down. But given what you're saying, are you at this point confident that you can top NA for yet another stage?
Yeah, I think it would be crazy to say that's impossible. Like I think when it comes to the official, like our team is just like really strong in officials. Like we have so much time together now. Like we've been together for almost a year at this point. I mean, I guess we had it Will, but Will already played with all the ISU guys, so there's not really any question marks with us about like performance. You know, I think all the other teams have, like, especially how close that SSG Liquid game was over the weekend. And I don't think it was close in a way where like both teams were playing insane. So it was close. I think they were both like making each other or showing each other's weaknesses. So yeah, I'm really confident that we're gonna win stage 3 again.
Now, one thing that we heard early on in the stage was that like this is a meta that is handcrafted for Liquid, right? With like the ball and the double flex and stuff. But like we've seen, the meta does seem to be shifting a bit. We're seeing more off tanks being played and stuff like that. So do you kind of agree that Liquid is like, or I shouldn't say as strong, but do you think that the meta has shifted enough to the point where you can kind of cleanly beat them?
I think SSC and Liquid versus us is interesting because we all have like our own styles. So I think the map like picks and all the hero bans are actually going to be super impactful. And I think those series like could end up being closer because like we all have like very clear styles, so we can like pick and ban, but like and really screw over the enemy team and really help ourselves. So
well, now kind of getting your perspective, not just on like the game itself, but specifically as a coach, how do you kind of like compare yourself, or kind of, are you nervous about like going up against Casores or ChrisTFer, or do you kind of think that like you'll be enough to kind of put forward a coaching diff?
I don't really like, I don't know. I've never like loaded into a lobby and been like, oh my God, they have this guy coaching, you know? Like,
okay.
I've been there like, oh, this player's pretty good, but I feel like the coaching, like actual impact on like teams is not, at least like among the NA coaches, it's not like a super impactful thing. I don't know.
So you're not too worried that they're gonna like out strategize you or something?
No, I think our team is extremely smart at our maps and our bans and stuff, and me and Ultraviolet talk about it a lot. Like that's kind of me and him is our thing. Like we live together in the same place, so you can probably hear him in the background screaming at ranked. So we talk about it a lot. So there's never really a situation where we're uncomfortable based on like the coaching aspect of the game, like the maps or the bans and stuff like that.
Okay. Awesome. Well, yeah, definitely sounds like you're confident. And with that about wraps up all the questions I have for you today. But before I let you go, do you have any messages you want to put out there or anything you want to shout out?
Say shout out to my mom and dad. They're always supporting me since I started my my trying to become a pro coach. Shout out to Geekay. They're taking care of us. Shout out to my team. They work hard every day. And shout out to Winthrop University, because that is where we are right now. So
awesome. All right. Well, Wheats, thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you for kind of sharing all your insight into how these matches have been going so far. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. And with that wraps up our interview for today. Thank you all so much for watching. Make sure you follow Wheats on his social media as well as Geekay Esports so that you can know whenever they're going to be going live, and you can check out their matches over on the OW Esports live streams. But make sure you follow owtv.gg as well so you can keep an eye out for more of these interviews where you can find out exactly what's going on behind the scenes and what's going on with all your favorite players and coaches. But again, that is going to be a wrap for today. So thank you all so much for watching. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you next time.